Board of Trustees of the McAllen Independent School District will be held today, Thursday, August 10th, 2023, beginning at 11:45 a.m. in the Dr. Ricardo Chapa Boardroom of the Administration Building of the McAllen Independent School District, 2000 North 23rd Street, McAllen, Texas. At this meeting, there may be discussion by the board on the items and subjects listed as follows. Item number 1, call the meeting to order. The meeting has been called to order at 11:45. Item number 2, public comments. There are no public comments. Item number 3 has been pulled and rescheduled to Monday, August 14th at 4 p.m. In the board workshop. And before we go into item number 4, I do want to let the board know that we have a hard stop at 12:30. So I will be kind of monitoring everybody's time, how long you're speaking, and I might pull the floor back from you. I mean, we're still going to run it like a workshop where you don't have to ask to be called on. You can just interject at any time. The same with admin. But if I feel like everybody's, you already spoken your piece and you're just kind of going over what you just said, I might pull the floor from you just out of respect for everybody's time, so we have a hard stop at 12:30. So item number 4, review of legal counsel contract. Dr. De Hoyos.
Administration will be reviewing the General Legal Counsel Services contract. Mrs. Alejandra Gonzalez, Assistant Superintendent for District Operations, has more information, and this item is for information purposes only.
Hi, good afternoon, Board and President. Each of you will have a binder in front of you with all the items that I'll be discussing. I do have a PowerPoint, but I might refer back to an item in your binder in case you have any questions. Currently, as our general legal counsel, we have Walsh, Gallegos, Trevino, Kyle, and Robinson. They were awarded by the board on June 22nd, 2022. Their original contract was effective July 1st, 2022 for a 3-year term with the option to renew for 2 additional 1-year terms. That contract amount was for a flat fee of $14,583 per month. It did have some stipulations where it did not include special ed, it did not include 504, and it did not include any kind of training. Prior to that, we did use Walsh and Gallegos as we had them on retainer for trainings, specifically in the human resources area, but this was a stipulation in their contract. Regarding special ed and 504, we do have a legal counsel for that, specifically for those areas. Any questions on this slide?
Just real quick, are you going to be going over all the legal firms that we use right now?
Yes,
okay.
well, and I can, and they're not on here, but I can go over. So currently what we do is we have Beekler is our counsel for special ed. We use O'Hanlon. We do use them. We did run a report. For the last 3 years, we've used O'Hanlon for approximately $14,000. We use O'Hanlon on a case-by-case. A lot of the tax information we go through O'Hanlon. It was just the practice in the last 3 years that we've done. We haven't used them much this past year, but prior, even when we had a different law firm representing the district, we would still use O'Hanlon, and also if there was any conflict of interest. HR has used them for several things, so that's one of the other firms that we've used. And I'm sorry? Any tax and state funding. So business offices and HR uses O'Hanlon, and like I said, from 2021 to 2023, the expenses were approximately $14,000 and change.
And mostly using for agreement.
Correct. So the HR items, yes, sir. Beekler is used completely solely by special education department. Any other questions?
Walsh is the one.
Yes, Walsh, we use them on retainer, and we were using them for Title IX trainings, different type of HR trainings, predominantly used by HR. We had them on retainer, and we have had them in the years past. This particular solicitation went out last year in 2022. Initially, we had gone through different directions, whether we were going to go in-house counsel, and it ended up being that the board chose to go with outside counsel and remove the special ed and 504, so we kept Beekler, and once Walsh and Gallegos were awarded, those were the stipulations, that it was not going to cover any 504, it was not going to cover any special ed, and then the trainings they wanted to bill separately for that. So it was just a flat rate, $14,583 a month, regardless of the billing hours. In July, on July 13th, I received a letter from trustee Aliceda, from our current council stating that in the contract, it also stipulated that they could assess fees, that either side could assess fees on an annual basis. So they came in after the term, because the term would have been June 30th, the first year, but they came in July 13th and stated basically effective August 1st, we are not doing a flat fee anymore. We're going to do tiered billing. They realize that the district utilizes them for more hours than I guess they realized. So they're starting at $265 an hour for the first 200 hours. After that, it goes down to increments of 245 hours for the next 200 hours, and anything after that is $225 an hour. And they bill at 0.1 hour increments, so 6-minute increments. That's how they bill. So if you're on the phone with them for 4 minutes, it goes to 6 minutes, and so on and so forth. And the hourly rate is $265. That's their new proposal. They wanted it to be effective August 1st. August 1st has come and gone. We're still under the original. We haven't signed that letter, the updated fee schedule. So we're still under, and correct me if I'm wrong, from a legal perspective, we're still under the original because we haven't agreed to that, correct? Now, expenditures that we have had, like I said in my first slide, trainings were not covered. So we've spent with Walsh and Gallegos $16,534.28 in trainings. So that's apart from our regular contract. And the flat fee was from July 2022 through June 30th, 2023. This I did include our hours. This is how many hours they did itemize for some of the months. If you notice, March through June, they did not send us an itemized bill. And they didn't have to because we had a flat fee. But that kind of shows you how many hours we'd be billing at with their new rate. If the same thing was repeated for this coming year, we use them this amount of hours, you basically have to multiply all those numbers times 265 to tell you the rate. So we're looking at a month of October, you're looking at $55,000 just for that month approximately. So this is the way it would look if history repeated itself for the district. Any questions on the hours used? Did y'all have a question?
Yeah, I just thought it was interesting that March to June, there's like no number.
And that's how their itemized billing, it comes into the superintendent's office and then it gets paid that way. And that particular one, there was nothing itemized. So I noticed a dip in January, I'm assuming because we're partly at Christmas break.
Closed.
Yeah, and so maybe that's why, and I'm not sure why they didn't itemize.
There was a lot happening.
Yes, yes. Yes, the way they sent in their bill and the way the invoice was paid it was not itemized. So now we're left with some options and considerations. So option number one, we accept their tiered billing contract. The expenses are going to vary. It may be over $50,000 a month if we decide to accept their new tiered billing. That's option number one. Option number two, we can resolicit this and terminate the contract once we award a vendor. This could take approximately 3 months or more just because we'd have to do the interviews all over again, do the specs all over again. So it could take about 3 months. So we would have to continue with them on a monthly basis. Our contract does allow us a 30-day out clause. So we would, at any point, if the board so desired, to resolicit at the point where we're getting close to awarding, we could send them the termination letter effective after the award date. So we'd have a double counsel for a little bit. That would be option number two. And then option number three would be possibly hiring an in-house counsel. What that would require would be we would need to create a job description for it, process it through TASB, process it through the board, get that approved. The districts that I've researched, Brownsville, Dallas, Austin, Houston, Spring, Katy, have in-house counsel. I did speak, last year in 2022, I actually visited, Mr. Miller was with me, we visited Brownsville to get an idea of how they ran. I did speak to the superintendent yesterday also to get some updates. So on the way Brownsville is a much larger district than us. What they do is they still have outside counsel, and they handle kind of simultaneously. They have O'Hanlon as their outside counsel, and then they have their in-house counsel. What the in-house counsel does, their model is basically they provide all the trainings to staff, they handle all contracts. The outside counsel, give me 1 second.
the org chart shows O'Hanlon reports to the board.
Yes, so that's their general, that would be the equivalent of our Washington. So they do have an outside, but they have an inside counsel. Also, Mr. Salinas, Miguel Salinas is their inside counsel. And we met with him also. So we met with the superintendent and Mr. Salinas. So their contract with the outside counsel is a flat fee of $240,000. And they handle basically special ed, so they don't have a separate special ed counsel. They handle board items and construction. The in-house, they handle anything personnel, grievances, anything related to personnel, OCR, Office of Civil Rights, anything related to the human resources. And their in-house counsel gets paid on a pay grade 8 on their scale, which is equivalent to an assistant superintendent. It's within that range. I did speak to Dallas. So Dallas has a similar model. They have an in-house counsel and they have an outside counsel. Their outside counsel only handles if they go to court, if they have litigation. That's the only time they bring them in. They try to handle everything inside and try to avoid litigation. So they have a completely different model, same type of salary schedule. So it's like an assistant superintendent range. And so that's basically it. But these are the districts that we knew. Nobody else in the valley, other than Brownsville, use in-house counsel. But a lot of districts outside the valley do. So that concludes my presentation. Do you all have any questions for me?
Just real quick, the one you just mentioned, what's the contract they have with the outside counsel? Is it on a case-by-case basis? There's no flat fee, no charge?
Correct, yes. Yes, so the Dallas, yes, it's on it, because they try to avoid litigation. So they have several that they use depending on what it is, and then they'll choose from them when they have to go to actual court.
Like a majority of corporations, that's when you have in-house counsel.
Then you go off
You
with-
try and keep it calm until you go into litigation, and you say, okay, this is our litigation firm, but you contract them, so. The goal is to not go to litigation, right?
Yes.
So,
Oh, you already have them on retained?
Yes, they have them on retainer.
We had 3 down here, because we were a lot of it.
So basically, it would run the same way we have it now. We would have either in-house counsel, we would still have the Beeklers, the O'Hanlons for the special scenario, or we would have, the way we have it now, we would have the Walsh firm that we have now, right?
Well, we
would still
could,
do.
it would be up to the board. We could have, similar to Dallas, where they even handle our special ed, if we had somebody with that kind of experience, they'd handle everything and then do litigation only. So everything would be 100% in-house, including trainings, everything, similar to the Brownsville model. So the Brownsville model, they do have the outside that does a little bit more. It's a high fee, $240,000. However, they are handling special ed. So we just happen to have another counsel for that. But if the board desires to go in that direction, we could definitely do that.
I like the Bronzeville one.
How much do we pay for the special ed?
I don't have
It's $25,000 per semester.
Per semester.
So 50 grand.
50 grand a year?
unlimited.
Limited use center.
Do we have historical numbers, like what we were paying our legal services in prior years prior to this?
Yes, sir. So we had, prior to this, we had Atlas Hall and Rodriguez. Steve Crane was the one assigned to us. We had a flat fee of $230,000.
We had them for over 20 years.
Yes, we had him for, so every time I got it, the proposal would come in differently. I was at the most recent one, which was the 2016 one, so their fee was $230,000. We still had Beekler though, so.
Right, you still had.
We still had O'Hanlon too.
Yes, yeah, the trainings.
And I think we're gonna always have, like, the O'Hanlons and the Beeklers, we're always gonna have them, right? But kinda seems to me like a no-brainer, like, to have your
In-house.
in-house. And even though, 240,000 is a lot, but right now we're at 200 with Walsh Gallegos, and another 50 grand for Beekler to do special ed. I mean, that's like 10 grand even more than having an in-house.
Right,
And-
but that's 240 if they have a special
Yeah,
ed, right,
absolutely.
professional, right?
Yeah.
Like that would be, I mean, only if it's someone that knows, like, in and out that.
It has to be in the specs, like, we would have to put that as part of the job description.
One of the things that I found very attractive within the Brownsville model was that their in-house, and this could be applied to any model, but the in-house counsel will go to new teacher orientation and train them on legal issues. They'll go to staff development and train them. They're basically on call 24/7. They handle everything that that goes on in the district. So that would remove the need to have a side counsel for in-services and trainings and Title IX, anything HR related that we need employees, they would handle that part with an in-house counsel. So you would eliminate that part. That an option would be to include special ed if we wanted to. We could waive it, are there counsel out there that have the expertise in education law 1 and special ed 2, because that's a specialty in itself. So those are different options that we could go with or keep Beekler. There's just different options with the in-house counsel, but I did like, that was very attractive to me, and I'm assuming to Mr. Miller, just because of an HR, you're taking care of everything in-house, and it's on the spot. They can go to a campus immediately and handle situations if it's training on the spot. So that appeared to me as a very attractive feature that they have in Brownsville.
And training teachers long-term would hopefully mitigate a lot of the issues that we're getting, so we wouldn't even need as much counseling.
Preventive.
Right, yes, preventative
Yeah,
measures.
it's also efficient. There's some firms that I know with other districts that will take days to read the contracts. Well, now they come in, they can read the contracts, respond.
Right.
It's,
So one of the things that I'll share, because I had my previous role with, as the director of purchasing, so I handled all the contracts for the district, and there is a difference with the current firm and our previous firm. In the previous firm, I dealt directly with our counsel, and he and I handled it quickly. Everything was handled within a day, like basically. Now I have seen a delay. I have seen, give us 5 days. And then they redline, okay, give us another 5 days. So there's a lot, and you don't always deal with the same. They do have different expertise, so it's a little different than the way the district was used to running. So that one of the, and I know Mr. Saliva had mentioned that you wanted to know about the staff. So in Brownsville, they have one person working for him. They're not a paralegal, they're just basically a receptionist. In the Dallas model, well, of course, they have 164 schools, so they basically have coordinators in there. They have 5 staff that are coordinators, 7 to 8 counsel, so they're much, much bigger, and then a deputy counsel. So we would probably mimic more of a Brownsville. And so we were, in terms of salary, we're looking at another assistant superintendent pay range, I think we're at pay grade 9, and then possibly like a receptionist type.
I'm for this, but if we recall in our budgets, we talked about staffing issues. And this is adding another individual at the board's direction, which the board had said we need for you to be looking as an administration about your staffing. And so this is now, as I understand it, we're adding an individual back in at the board's direction, when the board has already said we need for you to reduce.
Correct. The only thing is that it would be at a much lower rate than
We're still saying
what we're
yeah,
paying now.
exactly.
I understand all that, but it's still an additional staff.
Correct.
And as I understand from Bronzeville, they are part of their executive leadership team, which they're not in the other districts. And in Austin, they're doing the special ed. They do a special ed in Austin. They do everything that 2 are doing right now. But they still have an outside counsel for the board and for other issues. Which I didn't check Katy or Spring, but all of these are big districts. Out of
Yes, much bigger
12,000
than us.
school districts in the state of Texas, there's only these, and the only reason is because these are huge districts. The smallest district is Brownsville, with 44,000, almost 5,000 employees. So I think it's a great idea, but I also am real concerned because the prior firm, for about 18 years, maybe 20, it was only $200,000 flat fee, and we got our contract same day, and he was available and didn't charge us the way this firm is doing now. And in my opinion, we shouldn't have gone away in the first place. We wouldn't be in this situation we're in now. And it was more cost effective because they handled everything. And between these 2 firms, he was certified by TASB, Mr. Crane was, where the Waltz attorneys are not. So he was on the TASB list, gone through the TASB training, and was very well in tune with education. So,
And just something came to mind, so number 2 says resolicit and terminate contract. This also falls under a category that doesn't have to be procured, it doesn't have to be competitively procured according to the law. The district can just choose to hire an attorney, and they would be outside counsel if we so chose. The history in the district has been to have an actual competitive
Exactly.
procurement process. However, it's not required by law. And in the last one, I believe we had 8 firms come in, and the board interviewed the firms, and the recommendation was made to proceed with this firm. So that's how we ended up here, for those of you that are a little nearer. So.
You know, what you bring up brings up, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's,
Okay. But, for example, if we were to go with O'Hanlon to now make them our attorney, we could do that.
absolutely.
And then give you all a chance to work on how to create this position, everything you need. One idea that just our board president had is we could bring, I think it's okay for me to share, was maybe bring the internal auditor and her staff and put them in the same space, so you won't have to add another person if they're all together. So you're really just talking that person, so that's cost effective. But again, you could come up with a job description, a role for the in-house counsel for the board to review and approve that. And we could already have our counsel already set up. They'll mimic what Bronzeville's been doing, and it buys us time in a later date to decide to continue with that or not. Whatever firm. I'm just pointing out that knowing the procurement process, Hanlon's handled a lot of things for us already at a very, very good price, $14,000. They make the most sense for us.
I believe their hourly rate is about $185 an hour, so it's considerable difference to this new rate. So
But isn't technically Walsh Gallego still our attorneys?
right now they are, yes.
So why can't we, if the consensus of the board is to go with option 3 and get in-house counsel, while we're doing that, wouldn't Walsh Gallego still be our legal counsel?
They would be our legal, if we would sign the letter, they would be our legal counsel, and
Why do
then
we have to
whenever
sign
the
the
board
letter?
used them, it would be
Well,
up
the board will
to.
have to approve that.
But we don't have to sign that letter.
Yeah, we're under contract.
Well, we can negotiate, we have to, well, they're coming back with they're basically counter offering their original,
Their
so
services,
the
they had
they might withdraw at that
But they
point.
had a 3-year,
Yes,
No,
but
it's
they
a
had.
1 year. It's a 1 year
No,
contract.
no,
with 3
it's a 3-year term.
It's
It's a
a three-
3-year with the option to renew for 2 additional 1-year terms. However, it did say that they can review fees on an annual basis.
oh.
But both parties have to agree to it.
Both parties have to agree to it.
So if we don't agree to it,
They may choose to terminate, use their 30-day clause if they wanted to.
okay,
They
so we
have
would
that
have
option.
30 days then to get in-house counsel.
Right, and you said that's something quick that we could do.
The in-house counsel,
Yeah.
yes. It's just a matter of creating borrowing Brownsville and
But
tweaking
who would
it.
it, who,
And we know,
can we find someone?
yes, do we know what the role, there's not a lot of people that do that kind of law.
That's why I'm wondering.
Well, but let's
Well, it's
focus though on
contracts.
what we're asking.
Right.
Because we've already talked about SPED does not include, as we stand now, there's no SPED, there's no 504, no training. So if we're trying to replace Walsh, what we need is somebody who graduated law school and can read a contract,
Mhm.
put simply, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, there are tons of attorneys.
And we have great health insurance.
That's one of the things. they
That's,
have.
I mean, seriously, that's like an
Absolutely.
incredible thing to work for the school district.
Benefits,
is
you get
the hours, the
226
days off, the
Yeah,
health
yeah.
insurance, the benefits, I mean,
Can I ask, I'm looking at the rankings from, I guess, when it was bid out, like, it seems it was a very divided issue, like, what was the issue?
So one of the things about this particular one is purchasing was removed from it and the board handled it. So I
Actually,
did,
that's not,
we handled the scope of work with
There
the
you
board,
go.
and
You did do
then
that.
once the responses came in, we were asked to step back, and we weren't even included in the interview process. So I was just told at the end by Natalie, please work with this firm and get a contract, and I said, okay. But we didn't, from after the specs were written, that we worked with the board on.
actually, that's the way we've always done it. The way we did it this last time is the way we normally do it. I mean, we've always done it that way. The procurement was, you put it out for bids, and we do that, and then, but one thing that was done different, and you did rank them, which in the past they were not ranked, and you did. And then it came to the board, and that was part of the contention, there was some debate, that we have to follow the ranking that was done by procurement alike. And it was determined that because it's not even required, that the board set the tone, because our board policy, local, dictates that the board makes that determination. So the normal process that the board followed, which is that we interview, and then each one of us does our ranking, and then we combine that, and the lowest ranked score is the one you can go with. But as you know, under board policy also, the board can go with that, or they can make their own motion. And there was a motion for the second rank. And it didn't pass, so then we went to the top rank.
So to clarify,
Well, you know what, I don't want to waste time on what we did in the past.
I'm
We're
sure.
here.
I just wanted to make sure there wasn't an issue. with-
Yeah, no, we're here, we're where we are.
There was just a
So
difference of
let's-
opinion.
Let's move forward. And so I'm guessing the consensus is option 3. I know this is a meeting, so we can actually vote on it, but we do need to give some sort of direction to administration so that they can come back to us with their plan. So is that correct on the consensus?
Well, I still think we should have our own council. I think all of these districts still have their own council for the Board of Trustees. Bronzeville model still has a council for the Board of Trustees. And the reason is, if we're going to go the route we're talking about, and taking an attorney that really understands contracts, they probably are not going to know education law. They probably aren't. And so I think we need to have counsel to provide guidance to the board on it. And as you know, Mr. Crane, when we had him, he was, I mean, like you said, he was trained and certified in education law, and he was giving us a lot of great advice, far better than what we're getting right now. And I think that's important for us.
Well, my understanding was we're not getting rid of Beekler or O'Hanlon. They handle our sped already. So we're replacing an equal, which is Walsh is doing contracts, and we're replacing with an in-house that does contracts.
If we were to decide
If we
that,
did that. Oh, sorry.
if we were to go the route of no procurement and just negotiate with one of those two firms, more than likely O'Hanlon, because he's certified in education law, Beekler is not, she's on special ed side, then it would make sense to me that we proceed following the Bronzeville model, that we have still outside counsel for the board, and if we want, we can combine those. Apparently Bronzeville is using them for SPED, the O'Hanlon firm. We could do that.
But that's what we're currently doing now, right? Because we have them for SPED and for 504.
We have
Not-
we have Beekler for SPED, and
Yes.
then we have Walsh Gallegos for everything else.
Okay,
And
so we're
O'Hanlon
not,
comes in.
But
O'Hanlon
today-
comes in sporadically.
but what we're dealing with today is Walsh Gallegos contract. So I'm assuming we're not changing everything else. We're replacing Walsh Gallegos if that's what the consensus is.
With an in-house.
With an in-house, so that-
As opposed to.
Right, so our in-house doesn't, it's not changing our SPED or
It's not the
504.
scope of work that's
Right.
changing.
But it's not addressing, in my opinion, and I think it's important for us to consider, is that having our own legal counsel for the Board of Trustees, especially in the area of education. Which, my suggestion is, if you don't want to go out for the two items, 2 and 3, I'm in agreement with 3, don't misunderstand me. But I don't think the 3, especially if we're going the route that we're talking about here, and not including there that you have a special education added that as a legal requirement. That makes sense to me to do that. But it doesn't sound like we're going to do that, and it doesn't sound like we're going to get that. We're going to get somebody that graduated law school that knows contracts. And
Yes,
doesn't know public education, and it doesn't have a connection with Austin that we need, especially when we're dealing with issues with the legislature a lot, which O'Hanlon and Mo Casey work together and provide that information to the district and guidance that we get. So did Atlas and Hall Rodriguez, by the way. They were also working with us on those issues as well, on the education side. So I think you still have to, whether you do 3, you don't necessarily have to do 2, but you do a quasi-2, which we modify with O'Hanlon, an agreement with them, to serve as our legal counsel for the Board of Trustees, just like Bronzeville did.
I don't think we should sit here and say, oh, we're gonna go with O'Hanlon, or I don't think we should be throwing names out. I think if we're going with 3, we create a job description. We can add in there that they have school board or education law background, and then see who we get. I think it's fair to everybody if we solicit and see who comes up. Who's to say there's not a firm out there that has hired someone from some other firm that has education law background, and they may come in and do a great job.
I would be in agreement with that, Sophia. I was not hearing that. I was hearing that we would be, there are a lot of people that graduate law.
I don't think she meant it in a.
No.
in
Yeah, we're
a-
not talking about a first year.
right,
No,
well,
I'm not saying it's a first
They
year.
would jump at it, trust me.
right, and the only reason I brought that up is because what I'm saying is, right now, we're in a situation where Walsh Gallegos doesn't have that specialty. They're not doing that for us, and we're talking about replacing Walsh Gallegos. We're not changing anything else. So either we're doing things wrong already, because we don't have somebody who's advising the board, or we're trying to do something completely different that's not incumbent on us to do.
Actually, he is advising the board.
Yeah.
I mean, he's sitting in our boardroom.
Yes, but
And
not on
charging
special
for it.
education law, because that's not included in our contract.
Right. Which, again, that's the reason I was not for the firm. It didn't make, their way in the door was they had that expertise in Austin and they could refer to it, but it's not sitting in the boardroom when we're
We're
having.
not my case, because.
If we're gonna have that component added to the job description, that they have a certification in education law, then I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
I
That
don't
makes
think,
sense.
I'm not in agreement with that, because that's
Because-
not what we're using them for.
And we don't have that in the original that went out for the firm that that represents us right now, that was not part of the,
Yeah, if you look on the tab that's, the packet,
uh-huh.
and, yeah, it'll show you like the breakdown of what we requested. So basically, school law, public law, special ed, but we got rid of special ed in 504.
Okay.
Construction and architecture, real estate, employment and labor, finance, personnel, public law and federal legislative, and facility use and naming rights.
So I think that's what Trustee Regalado is saying. Let's go out, see if we can hire a person that has that expertise. Let's post it, that's what Trustee Peña was saying. Post it, see what we get, see if we get people that qualify for that. And then if not, then we come back and we have to go out for a firm. But let's post it so that it has all those that we need.
Okay.
And with the exclusions of the special ed and all that, I would,
That's on the, I'm sorry, that's on the Brownsville one?
No,
What you
it's,
just read?
No,
Or is that the agreement?
that's ours.
That was ours.
Yeah, so is that what I'm understanding? We just want to keep it as is, the way that it is now, but instead of having an outside firm, we want to have in-house counsel doing the exact same thing that they were doing before.
Actually, I think it's better than, to be honest with you.
So that sort of everyone's
But we
consensus
had
to give
that in the
direction
job
to admin?
description. We had the education law in the job description.
It's in there.
And it
Yeah.
can be preferred, I mean. it can
Right, I
be-
think preferred is fine.
What tab
but
are you looking at?
not
So
as
that
I'm
everybody
looking
can-
at, it's the packet tab, and it's about halfway through. You'll see, it looks like this. It's the packet tab.
Okay, so everyone, if you want to see what she's talking about, go to your
That's how it was
binder, the white tab that says packet, about halfway through. That is the qualifications that we went out for when we did our last request.
Like,
And it's,
So that's what we're
yeah,
saying.
yeah, it begins on 13.0 scope of work.
Okay,
And you'll see-
Walsh Gallegos had Priscilla de la Garza, who had school or education law in her repertoire, and she left them. So she's somewhere else doing education law, you never know. We just need to add it as a preferred.
You're absolutely
As
right.
is currently looking for associate in-house counsel. They're hiring, and it's been out for, I don't know how many days, but the way that they word it, and I'm just getting this because I got it sent from a friend, it says a background in public education or school law. That's just background. Like, it's worded vaguely because you're not going to find somebody that's
right.
going to say,
It's better,
yeah.
cast the
And
net wider.
then,
Yeah.
and then the way they phrase it, experience working in special education preferred. So depending on the counsel, as an attorney, you're taught to read the letter of the law and interpret it, right? And the law doesn't change. It's black and white, so it's the way that you interpret the words that I think that matter most. But yeah, you can phrase it that way. Hopefully you get somebody. But if you're going to narrow it down, you're not going to get anybody to apply.
Well, I'm okay with the fact, everything, I agree with everything. I wasn't singling out, I'm using
No,
the
I'm not
current.
saying that. We don't have to go there, just.
No, I think it's an important point. And the more we've talked, to me, it's clear. We're using, O'Hanlon's available to us anyway. So we're good. So you're right, we're just flipping, and we still have O'Hanlon for the law part, the real expertise we may need when we need it, and we have a rate of 178. We don't have to specify that it's for the board, but if the board, through the administration, has a question, which it already does, we can utilize them. That's the only reason I was referencing who we had already. We're only flipping one, but we still have the other expertise that we need to balance it all. We're good.
And
Okay,
if
so,
I may add, the Brownsville model, they do work together. The in-house and O'Hanlon will work on issues that in-house counsel may have questions on. O'Hanlon helps them out for that also.
okay.
What I would like clarification on is, on the job description that we work on, do you want us to include special ed preferred and see what we get, and then we can go back out if we get nothing? Or what, or which direction do you want to go?
Preferred, it doesn't mean it's
Well,
required.
because are we gonna get rid of special ed legal counsel and just have in-house take care of everything?
Could be best too.
And just see what's out there, or
I really like what trustee Rivera said about,
just like
make
task
it more
model?
inclusive, cast a wider net, not be so specific and see what we
Yeah.
get. I think that the consensus from the board is item number 3, and write the job description in a manner where people can apply, and then we can, we want to be able to look at 30 applicants versus 3 applicants. And then based on that, you can,
And I think,
Education background.
Yes, I got education and then
Peter does a
preferred on
great
the
job
special.
with.
She does, but if they have, if preferred for somebody and they have that expertise and it's just somebody
It's
to
an
bounce
advantage.
ideas, that's always great too, right?
What
Well, and I mean,
also-
Cynthia
I'm sorry.
does a great job for us.
I mean, attorneys are smart enough, I mean, they know if they're applying for a school district, that if they have that education or that CLE experience, they're gonna put it on
throw it
there.
in there.
It's a
So,
bonus.
Okay.
What I
don't
saw
think
with
we need-
Austin is that attorney that does special ed inside, they were able to resolve a lot of issues before you get a TEA complaint or any litigation process. So that may be a benefit to us, yes.
Would the idea be like the Dallas model where our in-house takes care of everything, including board, and then the outside just litigation if we ever have to go to trial? Or do you still want them to take care of, what would you want them, the outside to handle? That way, we can write the job description correctly and not include whatever you want outside counsel to handle.
I
I
think
still
we're
think
just
Ohio.
going with what Walsh
As
is
is.
doing, replacing Walsh. We're
Okay.
not, we're not changing
okay.
sped or anything,
Okay.
is my understanding.
That's my understanding as well. And everybody?
But we're adding
Okay.
education not preferred.
Perfect, okay.
So we'll see what we get with, cast a wider net. see what we
Yeah,
get.
background in education, okay, that's education law.
Yeah.
Law.
You rise to the top. Yeah.
And then there's not a lot of firms that do that. So let's say we get 8 or 9 or whatever the case may be, then we can, we interview them. And we've got the opportunity there to ask our questions, and we're blessed with 2
The beautiful
really
thing
great
is that there's a lot of
attorneys.
attorneys, and attorneys, like everybody else, is always trying to better themselves, right? So what if you get somebody to apply that's worked at one of these firms that isn't making that amount, but they feel they deserve it? That's why you're going to get people to do that, because, especially for that amount, right? So you never know.
Yeah, no, I think it's wonderful. And I would say if we can fast track this as quickly as possible.
So my question to the board now is, we have the item on Walsh Gallegos for Monday's board meeting, but we're not ready to make any decision on that, so do we pull it? Because we're not ready to cancel a contract with them, we're not ready to sign, what do we do? Like, which direction do you want us to go? Do we sign the letter?
No.
Talk to the attorneys.
Yeah.
Actually, the only way to sign that letter, it has to be approved by the board,
Right.
and then the board
Correct.
president can sign it.
So it's on the Monday's agenda. I just want to know which direction you want to go, because if we don't sign it, then they can come back and fire us in 30 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we can get this done in 30 days theoretically.
Yeah, and we can use our handling.
Okay, so let's pull it.
So pull it? Okay.
Okay.
I mean, they're gonna watch the video and they're gonna know, so probably gonna fire
Well, we'll
us.
have a conversation, I'm sure. Admin will be contacting them right now to let them know. Okay, so if there's no further discussion on that topic, item number 5 is adjournment. I would love to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Been moved by trustee Rivera, second by trustee Legarado. All in favor? It's passed. We are adjourning at 12:24 PM. Thank you so much, everybody, for sticking to the timetable.